Hi, everybody. We're the Skeleton Crew, and today we're going to talk about a dinosaur. This is a daring change in content strategy for our channel, where we normally don't talk about dinosaurs at all. We hope you bear with us as we explore this new kind of video that we're making. A tier list for Jurassic World Evolution 2. Imagine the thought.
Wow.
I know, it's crazy. Nobody's ever thought of making a video series like this before. This is the first installment, so thank you all for joining. Before we get into the subject of today's video, which is an armored dinosaur called Ankylosaurus, a couple of things. One, if you like our videos, or if you're just finding our channel for the first time, please consider subscribing to the Skeleton Crew, leaving a comment on the video, and liking the video. Every little bit of engagement we get from you guys helps us in the algorithm, it helps us find new viewers, so we really appreciate it. And if you like our videos, why wouldn't you want to be reminded every time one of them comes out at the exact same time every week forever for the foreseeable future of our lives?
Don't say that. Don't say that. don't put that out there.
Two, we are going to be doing our first in-person event appearance this spring. We're going to be at Midwest Gaming Classic in Amelia's hometown of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're really excited to be there. We're going to be trying desperately to recoup the costs of attending. So we've got, to that end, Amelia and Scott have done some wonderful work designing exclusive new designs for stickers and pins that we'll be selling at the con. So we're going to show a couple of these exclusive designs on screen right now. I personally think they're great. If I had any money to my name, I would buy them all for myself, but I do not. If you're in the area, it would be cool if you're able to attend the con. You can come see us at our table. We're partnering with some other people who are going to be there for some other dinosaur-related things. So if you're a dinosaur fan, a paleo fan, a Jurassic Park fan, we think there's going to be a lot of stuff at this event that you're going to like to see. So heavily recommend you attend if you're in the area. Please don't travel across the continent or between continents to attend this. As much as we would appreciate it, we cannot recommend this decision.
If you tell us you did that, I won't talk to you. I will think you're weird. However, if you attend the event, if you buy me drinks at a nearby bar, I will feign interest in any tepid and uninspired opinions you have about media.
Okay, so with that, I think that in case you're a new viewer of this channel, you might be interested to know that my name is Dr. James Napoli. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences and North Carolina State University.
My name is Amelia Zietlow. I'm a PhD candidate at the American Museum of Natural History.
All right, there's no Scott.
There's no Scott.
I'm the one your mother's warned you about, the tongue of the outer worlds. That's it. My name's at the bottom of the square.
And I am the nephew of a portly potentate, and I'll leave it up to you to decide which nephew that is. No, my name is Dalton Meyer. I'm a PhD candidate at Yale University, and together, we're the Skeleton Crew.
I mean, yeah, the Skeleton Crew.
Mostly.
Yeah, mostly the Skeleton Crew. Yeah, Scott has a normal job that pays him a wage and offers vacation days, and he's currently using those vacation days to travel.
Alex, what did you say?
By worm? Question mark? Who knows?
What is Amtrak but a worm?
Exactly. Plus the coming and going of him.
Worms might be a little more reliable.
Amtrak is there's very delayed coming and going.
You put the thumper in the ground, and then you kind of got to wait 2 to 3 extra hours because the worm got stuck in Dune, Boston.
But similarly, I think if you drink the blue liquid that comes out, you'll probably die.
Yeah, don't drink the blue liquid.
You will.
On the Amtrak.
You might die.
God, the last time I was on Amtrak, I was stuck behind somebody who smelled just repulsive for hours and hours and hours.
I remember this. You told us about this.
Well, it's bad when you can just smell another person when you're not up close to them.
Were you on a train with assigned seating?
No, I mean, it was just like I got in my seat, somebody sat next to me, and then the seats filled up, and the person in front of me was repugnant of odor. At the first...
That's an amazing phrase. Repugnant of odor.
So I tolerated it and breathed through my mouth for about an hour, and then somebody got off the train across the aisle, and I jumped up and, like, just in one motion, just threw myself across the aisle into the other seat. Which prompted the woman who didn't smell good to look back at me. And then I had to be like, I'm not going to acknowledge that you saw me evade your odor. Anyway, you know what else stinks?
This design.
This design.
Let's take a look.
Release the creature.
They even put it at a weird angle because they're ashamed.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, you don't really want to see this. You know, I don't hate the Jurassic Park 3 design, though. Or the colors.
No, the colors help.
Yeah. It's still the same.
But look at the wiggling, the segments.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm looking at the wiggling segments.
Does it have ribs? Hold on a second. Can you, well, when it's done doing this, you see what I mean?
I think you can see its ribs. It's flank.
Yeah, I think so.
No!
It's starving. Somebody feed it some vegetable, please, because it's very sick. Its armpits are all wrong. It's like texturally, they're kind of broken.
Well, that's actually a great segue, a little bit, for what its name means.
Oh yeah.
What does it mean?
Ankylosaurus means fused or bent lizard. In this case, bent out of shape, and the shape is fat, which is what magnaventris means. Because the ribs kill me, shoot me on camera. Good lord. The ribs are so wide, they had to name it for them.
I
They are
really do
very
like,
wide.
I do like the Wikipedia translation of magnaventris, meaning great belly. Like, I think that's
Great belly.
That's a really polite way to put it.
Yeah.
It's a synapomorphy of a graduate student.
Yes.
Topical, referring to earlier.
It's not a great belly. It's a mighty gut. Okay.
Terrible.
Anyway, so I do kind of. I'm going to nerd out about etymology for just 1 second.
Go for it.
I like that everybody translates ankylos as, or ankylos, the Greek word, as meaning fused, because of like the disorder ankylosis, like spinal ankylosis, where the spine bends. Everybody thinks it means fused because in ankylosis in medicine, the segments of the vertebrae will fuse together, but it means bent or crooked. So it's like picked up a different name because of its scientific usage, or a different meaning rather because of its scientific usage, which I think is kind of neat.
That is. I didn't know that until I read it today.
Yeah, no, it's something I don't know why I read it a few days ago. I think there was some other animal where I was dealing with this idea. But yeah, you'll often see it be fused or stiff or something, but it should probably mean like bent or crooked strictly. But it's acquired a different meaning, and languages exist as they're used, so that's actually okay.
Indeed.
It's just neat.
It's a matter of, it's not a strict rule. It has to be.
It is just neat. As Marge Simpson once said about a potato, which this particular brown Ankylosaurus reminds me of greatly. I just think they're neat.
I don't think this is neat, though.
No.
No.
Ankylosaurus, yes. This, no.
So Dalton, I want to delay talking about the design for a moment because it pains me.
Certainly.
Where are we right now?
Well,
Where have you got us?
we might be in meandering streams in a lush, green, bayou-like environment. If we take a look, there's some other dinosaurs. Wait, what's that? Is that a Torosaurus? My goodness.
What?
What's that over there? A Triceratops? Me oh my. They're going to be hard to find unless I use the map. Stygimoloch? Wherever can we be? It's the Hell Creek. That's right.
Yeah, so we're back in the Hell Creek formation. This is I think a really pretty darn good approximation of what this environment would have looked like, as close as you can get in this game. A lot of kind of popular science communication will often liken the Hell Creek environment to modern Louisiana,
that's a pretty good comparison.
Yeah,
That's kind of all I've got there.
educational.
Yeah, I was in Louisiana a couple weeks ago for a wedding, and there were times where I was like, actually, and I was fooled because it was much cooler than it would have been in the Mesozoic. It was a very nice temperate February in Louisiana, but I was like, I could live in the Hell Creek. This place kind of rocks. And then we were there at a wedding, and the wedding was at this beautiful property, and there were these humongous trees with the Spanish moss, and like right up abutting the wedding venue was a river. And I was just like imagining T-Rex walking around there, and I was like, I kind of get it now. Like I finally think, like standing in this environment, I understand how these animals like would have walked around and got around and like lived. Because it is swampy, but it's like not as like, I don't know, when I think swamp, I think of like constantly sinking into liquid and being horrible. And it's not like that. There are parts of it like that.
Right. And I mean, it would have...
Paleontologist goes outside once and understands.
Yeah, there's a lot, like, I think there's a lot to be said for that analogy of, because depending on how close you are to the seaway at that time, like, you're going to be dealing with kind of like a lowland forest environment all the way to like coastal swamps, bayou type situations and everything in between. Bayou situation is like a jungle situation, but it is different.
It's more
If it's for a Patreon, we'll tell you how it's different. What did you say?
Dalton said more gumbo at the same time. I said more crawfish.
Yeah.
Do they call them crawfish in Louisiana? What do they call
I
them?
don't.
Crawdads, crawfish?
Crawdads, maybe. We
I think
call them
crawfish.
crawfish.
I don't know. Yeah.
No, I thought crawdads is the southern.
I think it's in some of the South and like other parts, but I think
Like French.
it was crawfish in Louisiana. But I might be wrong.
It is crawfish in Louisiana and throughout most of the South, actually. Crawdad is more like Appalachian to like lower
Okay,
Midwest.
and then in the Midwest, we introduced the third option, which is unfortunately the worst, which is crayfish.
Right. Well, that's what I call them.
I think that's in the Northeast too. I've heard
It's
them.
also in the
Yeah.
Northeast. That's what I grew up
Interesting.
calling them. When I did in 7th grade, my school had like a science research elective, which in 7th grade was mostly just like you get to dissect a couple of animals and like do basic anatomy, which was very, very good for me. And I remember dissecting a crayfish, as it was called. So I think that must at least have been historically, regionally, what they were called.
They did a survey of what remains of the endemic wildlife of Long Island. They're like, the largest animal we can find is this
Is the crayfish.
this bog water shrimp.
I wonder if it's the same like curriculum as I did that in. I don't remember what grade because it was for a summer camp at the zoo. The Milwaukee County Zoo does summer camps, and for the older students are in middle school, I believe, is the oldest you can be, because then you can volunteer as a high schooler. But anyways, they have a vet camp, and in vet camp we got to dissect crayfish.
Yeah, we did. I think we did earthworm, crayfish, starfish. There was something else. Oh, grasshoppers, like big grasshoppers.
Oh,
and then,
yeah, I did that.
Cool.
Cool.
and then frogs.
Amelia.
And then fetal pig was like the teacher would do a fetal pig because that was like considered a little bit too difficult and possibly controversial. So the teacher would do it and be like, okay, come look at all the structures and everything.
Amelia.
Yeah.
Do veterinarians in your part of the country often find the need to dissect a lobster? Seems like a good study system for a veterinarian.
No, I imagine the reason it was chosen is that they're relatively inexpensive. And most kids would not have a connection to them in a way that would be controversial and or stressful. Although you can find them like in the creeks and things. And there was a particular campground that my family would go to that had a bunch of them. And so we would collect them and give them things to hold because they hold things if you give them things.
Can't you don't you buy them by like the 100 or the 1,000 to eat them? Like you just buy huge bags of them alive and just dump them into a boiling pot of water.
I've attended a single crawfish boil, which is funny that you say crawfish boil and not crayfish boil. That I've never heard. But anyway, I attended a single one and I did not participate because I was like 7 and had no interest. I just remember them being present and I had one that I just had to to take care of for the evening. I don't remember it very well.
Traumatic.
I'm going to see how many you can. What's the price for these?
We're gonna order some crawfish.
Yeah, if I order quality crawfish.
We're gonna do
You get 'em
skeleton crew broil.
Yeah.
Doctor, how is the page?
Oh, you buy them by the pound.
Oh, that makes sense.
That makes more sense.
So if I buy like 10 pounds, it's only $150 for 10 pounds of crawfish.
That's a lot.
Only.
I don't know if that's expensive or not.
I
I have no idea.
It's a crawfish, Michael. How much could it be?
$10.
I literally have no concept of how expensive they're supposed to be. I have never. That's it. We're having a skeleton crew crayfish or crawfish boil or whatever. That's what we're doing. That's going to be our next big event.
I'll happily go to that.
So yeah, we are back in the Hell Creek Formation.
to return to a different kind of segmented arthropod.
Yes, we are. One cool thing about the Hill Creek Formation is that it's got a lot of lateral equivalents that aren't called that, but are basically the same thing and preserve the same animals. I'm currently in Canada, so here there's the Schollard Formation and the Frenchman Formation. These are just other rock units that seem to basically preserve almost the exact same species as the Hell Creek. There are a couple of things that I think are known from up here in the various rough equivalents that are not known from Montana yet. There's also in the US, there's the Lance Formation, which is about the same. I don't know what the interpretation of the geological processes that generated all of these lateral equivalents is. My guess is that they're separate river systems that are kind of emptying at about the same time. So they're sedimentologically different, but they're the same time period.
Are there any marine transgressions?
No, because they're all equivalent to each other.
Okay.
So my guess is as you move up the east coast of the U.S., where I currently live in North Carolina, right? There's the Cape Fear River, and you move up, and there's the James River. There's these various the Potomac as you move further north. There's all these large rivers that are depositing sediment, and I'm wondering if it's something like that because this is at the edge of the seaway. If you know more about sedimentary geology than me, and you're watching the video, please tell me if I'm correct or not. I was thinking about it today because I'm visiting the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology. And so I was walking around looking at all their exhibits and seeing things about the Schollard and the Frenchman and all of that. And I was like, I've never really thought about this before, but why did that happen? That was where my brain went. So if you know the answer, please tell me.
That's because he's a scientist.
Exactly. A scientist is somebody who thinks about things.
You're a scientist if you've ever thought about anything.
Or, based on research that we see all the time, no, that's not what a scientist is. So anyway.
So that's where we are.
That's where we are. We're in what's now northern North America, what was then the northern end of the continent of Laramidia. The western interior seaway was regressing, so it's drying up. Sea level's dropping.
Cool. I like that.
What do you like?
The social animation.
I didn't have that tab open, unfortunately.
How dare he say a positive thing?
One seems to accidentally hit the other with its club in the head, and so the other one gets mad and then hits it in the back with its club.
Oh, that's a good animation.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. What I've tried to avoid ever speaking about today is the design of Ankylosaurus in this game.
Well, it's not... I don't think it's not really the game's fault on this occasion, friends.
No,
it's not.
It's the fault of a movie. Jurassic Park 3.
I think the Jurassic Park 3 design is better than the Jurassic World design.
Oh, I forgot they're two separate designs.
Yeah, no, the Jurassic Park 3 design is fairly okay.
Is it? I thought they looked basically the same.
They're decently similar. Oh, no. I think I prefer the Jurassic Park 3, but it still commits the biggest sin of having the segments.
Yeah.
Well, but a lot of Ankylosaurus depictions do that.
But I believe that's an outdated reconstruction, no?
Yeah.
Or am I talking out me keister?
No. That's... Yeah. It's a thing that I think maybe we should talk about this.
All right, that is what the point of this video is.
It is. Indeed.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
That's why we're all here.
So
Not
so
against
the
our will.
so I mean, these are just osteoderms, right? They're not. Are we aware of them even being embedded in larger bony plates in these animals?
No, like
Okay.
they're not bands of bones, and like I haven't found. Granted, I haven't looked very hard. I haven't found like a modern / updated version of like what the back actually looks like. The only one, I mean, there's a reconstruction of it, but I would like to see it with actual fossils. But whatever. But the old drawing, and even, I mean, the newer one, they just have like the osteoderms kind of like next to each other. And like, yeah, they're kind of arranged in bands, but like, so are ribs. Like, that's just an effect of how embryos develop, I think. But other ankylosaurs, like I'm thinking of like the Sauropelta roadkill at the AMNH, like it's a pavement of small scales. I imagine that's what's going on. And Borealopelta too, like there is a pavement of smaller scales all around the big ones, but there's no caterpillar segmentation.
I would say there's one area where they're segmented like that, but this is the only one we know about, which is the cervical rings.
I was gonna say, yeah, like they've got the bone collars.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
But even that, I don't think is external. Like, I don't think it's
No.
affecting how they would have. Yeah, right. It's just like
No,
there's.
no.
Ooh, bad image. Ooh, bad
Yeah.
image. It reminded
No,
me of
what-
something else.
Sorry. What I was just trying
No,
to say is
okay.
that, because there's some where we know of like the pelvic shield where it's like there is like a osteoderm that's bearing other things. I don't even
Yeah.
think we're aware of that for like Ankylosaurus and its closest relatives. I think they're just series of segmentally arranged large osteoderms.
Yes.
With the exception being like they do develop cervical rings that are kind of like neck armor that you see from the Middle Ages. But I don't believe that's been interpreted as covering the whole body.
No. So I have pulled up a paper, and we can probably pull up the figure from this paper by Victoria Arbor and Jordan Milan. Unusual cranial and postcranial anatomy in the archetypal Ankylosaurus magniventris. And they put together a really nice summary of kind of the different ideas of what Ankylosaurus armor has been interpreted to be like through the years, because to my knowledge, like we have some ankylosaurs like Borealopelta, like I think even Sauropelta, where the armor has been found pretty much articulated, and we have a good sense of like this is what it looks like. But for Ankylosaurus, we don't have that. I think we've only ever found the osteoderms disarticulated. And so the original kind of reconstruction of them was just kind of uniformly covering the body, which is very similar, if I'm not mistaken, and let me just double check this with really quickly, to the Walking with Dinosaurs depiction. Yeah, so if you remember the Ankylosaurus from Walking with Dinosaurs, and it's just kind of like round and bumpy, that's kind of the classic depiction that goes back to apparently 1908. And then that's been revised several times of kind of spacing the osteoderms more far apart from one another. Some people have invoked that kind of pelvic shield, but again, there's no evidence for that in Ankylosaurus. And then other people have arranged the cervical armor a little bit differently. And I think the latest interpretation of it, the latest hypothesis, the one that's from this paper, I'm pretty sure is a lot of that is based on Zool.
Yes. Well, was Zool... I don't know if Zool had been published yet. Had it? Are they
Let me double
citing
check
Zool?
that.
They cite Zool
Well,
right under that image. So yes, it must have been
I
named
think
already.
I think it gets to a little bit, and I think this flows with Dalton's point, which is not a lot of this animal exists.
Yeah, I mean, there are specimens referred to it that come from all over the place, but it is quite rare considering the amount of work that gets done in these strata.
Mm-hmm. It's so rare that the Wikipedia page invokes that perhaps they lived in the uplands.
Upland animal.
Put a tally in your maybe they were upland animals counter, because
Upland sweep.
it's been mentioned once again.
This certainly looks like an animal that's climbing mountains to me. I don't know about you guys. It's very agile. It could clearly jump and scale sheer cliffs.
Upland could just mean, it's a very slow incline.
It is a... now, Zool is actually an animal we talked about in our second ever video, I believe.
I think so, yeah.
An old example of
Really?
the Fossil Friday review. Yeah, we talked about the. It was a paper
right.
that was led by Victoria Arbour, who's done. Victoria Arbour's really, I would say, pretty unequivocally like the leading expert on ankylosaurs right now. Like this was her PhD, and she's done a tremendous amount of work to clarify the taxonomy and do a lot of paleobiological work on them too.
Yeah.
She's got that
she's
ankylosaur
also
in her.
she's also super nice. I don't know her incredibly well personally, but every interaction I've had with her at conferences and everything has been wonderful. And she was a former postdoc in my lab, so I am, in some
the Zano
sense,
lab?
filling the role she used to fill.
Sorry, James, in the Zano lab?
Yeah, she was a postdoc.
Well,
with
I
Lindsay.
didn't know.
I also
Yeah.
didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't like in the Zool fossil. I'm not seeing evidence of like beyond the fact that they are arranged segmentally, like which is
Well,
emulates.
Here's a problem. If you open up the image and zoom in, there are weird creases.
Yeah.
I think those might.
Like that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
I don't think it's this. I want to be
No.
clear about it. Like they're not moving like this or interacting like this, but like I wonder. I mean, it's just. I mean, probably it's just like so this stupid thing could turn. Like so it's
Yeah,
there's
I mean-
smaller scales and a bit more flexibility
Yeah.
in between like the ribs and the vertebrae.
Like,
I'm sure that's what it is. Yeah.
like an
Yeah.
accordion bus.
Yeah,
Right, well,
not this.
Not that extreme, but
And not again that there's an underlying bony plate that the
No.
osteoderms are then on top of, which is what I've
No.
been. Right, and just to be clear to the viewer, that's what I've been trying to argue
Yeah.
against, like
yeah.
because that's what a lot of art of these animals kind of reconstructs. Like in this case, it's
'Cause
very
this is-
extreme.
These are rigid plates.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's based on probably an aardvark, right? Not an aardvark, an armadillo.
Armadillo.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't like it. It looks like you could peel it. Like it looks like you can peel the whole top off, and all I can hear is the sound for those of you who've taken anatomy classes. I think you know exactly kind of the sound. Like when you
The fascia.
the fascia. Yeah, that one. Just
That's
the
a
real
good sound.
deep. Yeah,
It's, like,
no.
it's kind of nice.
Well,
nice-
it's
nice
nice in
popping.
like the psychopath way.
So Ankylosaurus is the only thing I really have to say about this design is, dear viewer, you may know that there was at one point a full 4.5 hour long version of this tier list that was going to be one 4.5 hour long video instead of like 120 hour-and-a-half long videos. The fact that we got through it all in 4.5 hours is insane.
We almost didn't.
We almost
We were on
didn't.
the
I
brink of death
had
halfway
a
through.
lot of micro sleeps in the last half hour. Like you can see footage of me falling asleep actively. We also will not be releasing this solely because the footage is unusable. We had some tech errors
It's
that
really
prevented
bad.
it. Yeah, no, it's unusable footage.
We would if we
which
could,
is-
but
Yeah, well, I mean, had that worked, we probably would have just released it. Like, I was trying to edit it all through, like, the October before we started really releasing videos, and part of the reason we decided to do this series is we were like, we clearly want to talk about all these designs. Let's give all of them their own video. We were like, surely they'll all be about 20 to 30 minutes long.
surely.
Surely. Anyway, in that video, I said that this dinosaur looked like it was designed in Spore. And I stand by it.
Yeah, you're right.
It's but again, this is not a fault of the game designers or,
No.
or anybody employed at Frontier. This is what it looks like in Jurassic World.
So I was something that has always bothered me, and it only now clicked. Not just the shingles, which suck, but the spikiness, these like lateral spines. Ankylosaurus didn't have those, as
They
far as
didn't
we
have
know.
them. Yeah. You're right.
Zool has some pokies on the tail,
But they're yeah.
but Ankylosaurus osteoderms seem to be kind of uniformly, keel-shaped, rounded, like these here on the plates, and they didn't seem to have any kind of spikes coming off of them. They've got enough danger with the far end that they didn't need
Danger.
spikes.
Yeah.
Oh, my browser just did a really weird thing anyway.
one thing we talked about back in that old video, which is I think somehow how we got on one of these tangents, that's just fun fact, our least viewed video of all time, which I think is very funny.
We tried to talk about a paper and none of you liked it.
Right.
Don't expect it ever again.
So when you ask us to talk about more science, that's why we don't.
Right.
You
Right.
had
Because
your
of you,
chance.
viewer.
Yeah, we
Because
released
you specifically.
in 3 weeks. We released a video about a paper that got, honestly, a couple hundred views early on when we had like way fewer than that in terms of number of subscribers. I'm still pretty proud of that. Then we released a reaction to a DLC for a video game and got like 30,000 views
Yeah.
like immediately. And then we released another paper reaction, and it is still the lowest viewed video we've ever released, including the 3-second long meme for Prehistoric Planet that I made when I was like absolutely tired. Not drunk, so tired it was like I was drunk, trying to edit those Prehistoric Planet Season 2 reactions in time to release them.
James Napoli has never had a drop of alcohol in his life.
I've consumed alcohol, but I was not doing so at this moment.
I remember you didn't even tell us; it just appeared overnight. I think like I logged on the next day to like do time codes or whatever, and it was just there. It was like, well, who did?
Yeah, well, and then I did another one a couple days later, which I was still very happy with. But anyway, those videos have done better than us talking about a paper. So this permanently altered our brain chemistry. We all wish we were doing more hard science stuff, but then we also like it when people watch our videos. It makes us feel nice. So this is hard. But anyway, that paper was about the use of the tail clubs in Ankylosaurus. And given that statistically probably 0 of the people who watched that video are currently watching this one, it might be worth briefly reminding everybody what the conclusions were.
Well, remind me. Dalton, would you remind us what the conclusions were?
I could certainly remind you, if you would like. The kind of thesis of the paper, the main thought is that while they would certainly be useful as an anti-predator device, and the paper isn't arguing against that, the main purpose of these implements, and probably the impetus for why they evolved, would be for intraspecific combat. That is, kind of using them to bash against one another in likely ritualized mating combat. And that is supported by pathologies that are on the side of the animal that are congruent with getting smashed by one of these tail clubs.
Right.
You could say the Ankylosaurus was saying, finna smash?
Yeah.
Granted, yeah, I just thinking about how a lot of people interpreted that to mean that they weren't fighting predators, like not actively fighting, obviously using them to defend themselves against predators. We would never know the difference between a tyrannosaur that was killed by one of these and a tyrannosaur that's fossilized because they're made of glass and they would have shattered.
Additionally,
I'm thinking specifically of a fossil I found in Hell Creek once that we named the shrapnel bone. The shrapnel bone was a pile of shrapnel in the vague shape of a limb bone that was like 4 feet long, and no matter how far I dug in, it was just shards. Like that's what would happen, I think, to a T-Rex shin. So who's to say?
I will also say there are a number of Tyrannosaur specimens with pathologies on the fibula.
Yeah.
Like we can't know what caused them. But animals are not Pokemon or superheroes, and they don't use their thing for only one purpose.
Yeah.
And so I think if a Tyrannosaur approached the Ankylosaur would try to hit it.
Consider, viewer, your hand. You can punch someone with it, or you can shake someone's hand. You have just done 2 different social actions with it. Incredible. Shocking. Paleontologists simply won't believe.
Well, you laugh at it, but
Yeah.
when I introduce you to the literature on why did the human hand evolve, with one of the serious hypotheses being that the human hand evolved to form a fist to punch other human males in ritualized combat for mates, and that all other uses are secondary. That same paper, I believe, also hypothesized that human men grow beards to cushion the impact from these punching blows from other males.
Did a man write this paper?
That's incredible.
You guessed it.
Okay, I'm not trying to say something by that, but
No, say
No.
it.
But she is saying something.
You can say it, Amelia.
no, I'm not. No, I don't even know what it is. It's just I'm thinking
Right.
of the image that I sent to you guys for another context lately, or like recently. That was not all men, but somehow always a man. Like this is one of the. That's my feeling. That is what I want to say.
Speaking of the tail club, one thing that this design I think doesn't do well is convey that not only does it have, I mean, it conveys the giant tail club decently well. I think it kind of subdivides it into more lobes than we see on the Ankylosaurus tail club. Just from the picture I'm looking at, but having not seen it in person, I can't really.
No, it's wrong. I mean, I've seen it's at the AM&H. The holotype's at the AM&H.
Yeah.
It is just wrong. Let me find
Because it looks like Ankylosaurus is just kind of two big
lumps
lumps and then two little ones.
Yep. I mean, it's similar to Euoplocephalus.
Okay.
Where it's
Lumps
like, yeah.
sat alone.
No, and that looks like it looks like oats. It looks like too many.
It looks like the head
Yeah, no,
of one of the monsters in Monster Hunter. I can't remember the name of it. I think Baroth. I'll see if I can
Please
find it
don't.
and show you guys.
Please don't invoke this in the comments.
It's too many. Oh, and there's only one tail club known, which is the one at the AM&H. So yeah, it is objectively wrong. This is not there is no room for individual variation. There is an individual, it does not vary. It does not look like this.
Wow. So the scorpion.
And in addition to getting the club wrong, it does not convey well the fact that the tail is structured in a way so that it also the club kind of has a handle, right? It's got that region of stiffened, of like really thin vertebrae with stiffened ossified tendons.
No, it's wiggling.
And so it wouldn't really have wiggled all the way to the tip like this.
But did Lump Linger last in line for brains?
What?
Did Lump Linger last in line for brains?
I don't know. But I think that covers the tail. Do we want to talk about the head and how it's not quite right?
It's not right. It's not even not quite right.
Which is a
It's not
shame.
right. Like that's another thing that when I first visited the AM&H in January of 2020, before we knew that everything was going to end, I was blown away by how wide the head, like just how big it, first of all, how big it is, how massive it is, but also how wide it is. This thing is getting wrong the angle of the spikes at the back, like they splay out more. They're pointed backwards, like they're not, they're lateral. And just the nose is like really, or I guess the snout is really broad and flat. It almost like doesn't taper at all. And they give it a stupid hawk beak.
Yeah.
So Victoria Arbor's reconstruction of the AM&H skull does have the horns going like backwards a little bit too. Is it possible that that's restored?
They go out and back. Like
I
the
see.
tips are like specifically the top ones go in. So on Wikipedia, there's a picture of it from the front. Victoria's is from kind of an angle, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
The top ones go out and back, and the bottom ones almost stick straight, like down and out.
Yeah. And then it's also got these like kind of over the eyes, like in the sides of the face, are big, chunky osteoderms and not the little capitegulae.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
it's got some nubbies above the eyes, but not.
I do like that they clearly made an effort to actually depict the capitegulae.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad aspect of it, but like Amelia's right, the entire shape of the head is not really on the mark.
You know what I say about this?
What do you say?
Thank God for the Oplocephalus.
Yeah, the Euoplocephalus in the game looks great.
At least I can have an Ankylosaur that looks okay.
Yeah, this.
I don't think it's wide enough either. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just looking at the ribs again. Like, I don't like it. It's so bad.
Yeah.
It's very turtle shaped and armadillo shaped in a way that I don't like. I think something we brought up in the Lost episode is that apparently this is Colin Trevorrow, the director of Jurassic World's favorite dinosaur.
Yep.
And I can't understand why, if this
Does
is your
he
favorite
know?
dinosaur, you would do this to it.
I don't think he knows.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, no. Well, I feel like the design for the movie kind of just looks objectively bad. Like, I don't care
A lot
about
of
the
Jurassic
accuracy so much.
Mhm.
Like, it's just kind of ugly.
It
You know
is.
what I
In
mean?
the movie, like I don't remember being bothered by it in the movie. I'm gonna look it up. Really,
I'm gonna watch the clip.
quick.
Doesn't it get murdered by the Indominus?
Yeah.
It does, and I just in the movie, I don't remember it looking as crappy as it does, like, in isolation like this, because, like, it's constantly kind of moving and in the dark and stuff. Like, obviously, when it wiggles its tail and stuff, it's obvious. But just the lighting and stuff keeps it from being
it helps.
you know. And when it's like I guess in Fallen Kingdom, it's also one of the animals in the cage. Like, you can't really see it.
It's also galloping away from a volcano.
Yeah, and then plummeting like a stone into the ocean. That was one of the first things I remember at one of our dinners. The dinner where Carr told me to sit in the corner because we were talking about Jurassic World. He was complaining about that in Fallen Kingdom because it was after the Super Bowl where the trailer just came out.
Oh.
He's like, it's wrong that they have these poor animals jumping off a cliff and sinking like stones into the ocean.
It's one of the reasons I like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, because that is one of the stupidest and pointlessly cruel things I've ever seen depicted in a movie.
See, and I don't
enjoy that particular aspect of it.
I don't jive with it. It's rude.
They couldn't gallop.
No,
well,
they
right.
certainly could not.
This is a dinosaur that's almost re-evolving a parasagittal gait just based on how far its legs are apart.
Right.
Not really. It's erectly gated. That's just... They're short and weird.
They're very
However,
short.
it's weird because I don't think they're not different models to my understanding. But the Jurassic Park 3 one with the coloration, they seem to have smoothed out the club and it looks better.
Can you zoom in on it?
Yeah, hang on. Let me get into
Enhance.
enhancement.
Enhance.
Enhance.
Ew, it's got a nubby. Ew.
Like, it's the same shape, but the way they textured it.
They
Yeah, it
textured it
does
like a
look better.
turtle plastron. And they give it... I don't like that either.
You know what I really like? I'm watching the clip again from Jurassic World. I like how they're seeing that the Ankylosaurus and the Indominus Rex are about to have a fight. And the kid pilots the gyrosphere directly toward the Ankylosaurus's tail so that then there can be a scene where the tail hits the gyrosphere and it goes crazy.
See?
Like, he chooses the one vector of motion that will take it directly to the club.
Viewer, remember our earlier video where I claimed that I could probably, if the need arose, fight an Ankylosaurus by simply standing in front of it? To inject drama and threat into that scene, they had to be like, you have to drive to the dangerous end of the animal in a fast sphere.
So, just to point out what I'm seeing here, if I zoom in on the regular one, there's like 1, 2, 3 lobes on it. I think there are still 3 lobes on this, but the way it's textured makes it look more like it's one big one and then one little one, which is the more correct configuration, even if it is pretty gross to look at.
I was trying to figure out if they could be excused by like having referenced Euoplocephalus instead, but the answer is no. Because there's one in collections at the museum. They look very similar to Ankylo. It's 2 big nubbies, and then there's 4 little nubbies at the end, but they're kind of pavemented together into looking like the same.
Yeah.
So
Is that one still Euoplocephalus, or is that possibly Anodontosaurus now?
the one that I am thinking of is not Anodontosaurus. It doesn't have the pointies. This is the other one. This is the one. I know exactly where it is in Farb. It's in Farb. It's not pointy. It's round. It's partial.
Okay,
And
got it.
it's huge. It's really cool.
Huge.
There is one refrain we're coming back to that I think maybe warrants a little bit of comment before we give up
Sure.
on this animal, which is just that Ankylosaurus is really big,
Yeah, it is huge.
like
Yes.
compared to other Ankylosaurs as well. And I think it is interesting, and I don't think there's ever been a reason for this proposed that satisfied me. But the animals in the Hell Creek Formation are kind of uniformly just bigger versions of the things that had lived previously in what's now the Western U.S.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, every group sees its largest counterpart. And Amelia's smiling because she thinks I'm going to talk about preservational bias.
No, I'm not. I'm smiling because I know the answer.
What's the answer?
Just went big.
It's just
So yeah, like they're all big, and I think it is possible that you're getting some sort of preservational bias that's like favoring very large animals, and like there is a noted non-abundance of very small vertebrates, right? Like Thescelosaurs are not particularly abundant, although there are more of them than I always thought there were. But like we know,
I mean, I wouldn't call them small; they're medium.
Yeah, there's like an absence of mesoscale stuff because there's plenty of microfossils in Hell Creek, but.
Yeah.
Well, right. But I mean, like, you know, we know there were like many birds in the environment, like lizard body fossils, snake body fossils, not common, Dromaeosaurus, troodontids, oviraptorosaurs. Like, we know they're present and we find occasional traces, but like, you know, the Hell Creek is leptoceratopsids, pachycephalosaurs. Thescelosaurs are like the most abundant of anything that's less than like a ton in body mass. And then there's beautiful remains of a lot of these really, really super large animals. But the same kinds of depositional factors are present in like the Dinosaur Park Formation, the Horseshoe Canyon Formation, or anything like that. And it is interesting that all of these lineages just seem to get bigger at the end of the Cretaceous. Like each lineage's largest known representatives, with the exception of sauropods, are known from like the western interior of the U.S. at the end of the Cretaceous period.
And I mean, I wonder... It's got to be a climate thing, because I'm just thinking, like, the same thing happens to mosasaurs. The biggest ones are Maastrichtian.
Right, and I mean, I would usually gravitate toward that, but I don't know if there's any, like, significant change in temperatures that's known at the time. So, like, I don't know. It's interesting. I'm not, like, I think climate sounds like the most likely solution to me, too, but I don't think there's anything known now that would have done that. It's weird.
I can't see what else, like, other than coincidence, which it could be. Like, if you leave an animal in the ocean long enough, it's going to get big. Like, that just happens. So it could just be coincidence, you know, that,
Right.
but I'm thinking, like, it would have to be something climate related that would affect things that are both wet and on the land.
Right.
But,
It's
but
just
does it happen everywhere? Or is it just North America and then I guess the oceans?
that's part of it. We don't have a great record of a lot of these other areas at the time, but let me check one thing before I say something wrong. This is from the... Okay, so I thought Shantungosaurus was Maastrichtian, which is the end of the Cretaceous, but it's actually late Campanian, probably. But, like, we don't have a lot of terminal Cretaceous deposits. I know there's deposits that have been identified in Spain, and the deposits in Romania that I've done field work in are approximately the same time period.
What do you mean, like 66? Like terminal?
Terminal. Not just Maastrichtian, but like end Cretaceous. Like right toward the boundary.
Sure.
There's not a lot of exposures of these things. But it does seem that at least in North America, right, you get some of the largest known hadrosaurs. Shantungosaurus is, I think, the largest documented, but I've seen isolated, extremely large Edmontosaurus material.
Big duck.
And it's hard to conceptualize how much bigger these animals are than their like Campanian stage equivalents, unless you see the material in person. Like, again, Alex and I have told this story a couple of times on the channel, but working with like Gorgosaurus type remains at the University of Alberta and then getting down a cast of a T-Rex maxilla. Like the T-Rex's maxilla alone is bigger than the entire skull of these smaller tyrannosaurs. They're all large predators, but T-Rex is an absolute monstrosity. You get the largest ceratopsians. Triceratops is way bigger than all these centrosaurians and even chasmosaurians from the Campanian, right?
Yeah.
So, like, all of these lineages do seem to kind of be approaching their apex in size at that time. I agree that it sounds like it's a climactic driver, but like, I don't know, and I think we'd need terrestrial deposits from the same time in other parts of the world to see if this is something happening universally, which we don't really have now. No, that's okay. Alex, go ahead. What insulting thing were you going to say?
What if T-Rex being so big and cool is making everything else evolve to be big and cool?
Interesting.
Face the wall.
Please.
Oh, it's on the wall.
Anyway, it's just neat that Ankylosaurus is not an exception to that pattern, right?
Yeah.
It's weird. I hope eventually... I think there's interesting research to be done on that problem. First, determining if it's a real signal or just some local artifact that doesn't mean anything, which it could be. And then also figuring out what may have been causing that to occur.
Yeah.
I think
That it's big. That they're big, I think, could be real.
Yeah.
Well, like,
Yeah. No,
they're they're definitely. Yeah.
I just wish there was another one, like, because that was wild to me. That like it's basically only the holotype and then some scraps, and like we talked about this a little bit in the Stiggy Moloch video, but it's one of those things that whenever when I go to the Hell Creek with Carthage, like we're always looking for them because it's like they're boulders. Like there's no reason we shouldn't be finding tail clubs and stuff, and it's like we routinely like we'll check boulders to just be like, it's a large round object. Are we, because it's in the Hell Creek, like at least me, like I am garbage at finding cool large things. I always find cool microfossils. So like my site picture, the things I'm looking for, like I am aware that I might be glazing over larger things just because I tend to not find them. But like whenever we pass a suspicious boulder, I do take a look. Which is what happened when I found the Pachycephalosaur dome. Basically, it looked like a round rock. I was like, that's odd, and I picked it up and it had vasculature. It's like, oh, okay. But like we don't find these things. We find teeth and we find osteoderms. But so we, as in the Carthage group, we find teeth, we find osteoderms, we don't find anything else, which is bizarre because like we've been collecting on that land for I want to say over a decade. Lots of fossils, lots of people with lots of different specialties and site pictures and experience and all of that, and it's always only teeth and osteoderms. And the osteoderms are always isolated, which is also bizarre to me because you can't they don't shed like how
Right.
I
gotta say, if there's anything paleoecological that I'd maybe believe, it's that ankylosaurs were more common in relatively more arid areas because they are very common in the Gobi.
They're all over the place in the Gobi.
Yeah.
They're all over the place. You found like mass death assemblages of like 30 babies. Like in the Gobi, like in the deposits that are really from an arid kind of environment, ankylosaurs are kind of one of the only large things you find. I think there's preservational reasons for that, but like we don't find abundant evidence of like hadrosaurs, sauropods, or anything until you get to like the Nemeth Formation, which is a kind of like a more arid version of a Hell Creek environment. Right? Imagine like maybe a river delta, kind of like the Rio Grande or something, like where it's an arid environment. There's a lot of water moving, but it's not like a lush woodland. Or the example I always use is like the Nile Delta or the Okavango Delta, where it's an arid environment with like localized vegetation. I don't know if we can distinguish this easily from just the sheer abundance of ankylosaur fossils in the Gobi, or of just fossils in the Gobi rather. But it is possible that maybe they were generally more common in more arid areas, and therefore like something as lushly forested as the Hell Creek is just not a typical part of their range.
I could believe
It
that.
feels
And
very I believe that more than they were alpine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, they can't be out. Well, not that they can't be, but I don't buy that they're alpine at all because the fact that some of the best ones we have are bloat and floats. So, like, they're living near the seaway somewhere.
Have you ever heard of the game Getting Over It by Bennett Foddy?
I think, is that the one where you're in the cauldron?
You're in the cauldron and you have a sledgehammer that you're using to climb a mountain. That's what I think ankylosaurs were doing. I think they're just swinging their tail club as like fast as they can.
Around.
Right, just flipping around, grabbing onto ledges and then thrusting up. That's a fun game. It's a game I got as my PhD started getting hard because apparently I can never give myself a break or be easy on myself. So I would do hard PhD work all day, and then I'd get home and play Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, which is one of the most brutally, punishingly difficult games I've ever played in my life.
But anyway,
sorry, go for it.
Just to finish the thought, it's like in order for them to end up in the seaway, they needed to be at sea level. Like, so wherever they're living must interact with the seaway. At least the ones that we find as bloat and floats, which are like Niobrarasaurus, Borealopelta, and probably others. But those are the notable ones.
Well, I mean, is that true? Like, couldn't they get washed out by like a river in the Highlands and like
they're
get
so
washed
heavy.
Well, also,
But I mean,
You know,
they're
like-
getting floated out. Like, so
yeah, I guess. It's just I feel like
that's a lot of transportation.
to follow parsimony for a minute. I think it's more reasonable to be like it died on the beach.
Yeah.
Or it died near the sea.
I mean, I think bloating floats are probably usually being delivered like out to the sea by the river. That would be my guess. I have no idea if we can know that.
Well, according to the painting of the mural at the Sternberg Museum that shows Niobrarasaurus, it died on the beach.
Oh, okay. Well, if the mural says it.
My thoughts on the Ankylosaur issue, kind of similar to the Pachycephalosaur issue, but more so even with Ankylosaurus, because Ankylosaurus is actually really big, relative to it's like not incomparable in size to like Triceratops and Torosaurus. It is smaller, but not immensely so. It's just that I do think it's reasonable to take some observations of things that have in a very well sampled area that are subject to the same taphonomic biases on size, and that the fact that we find so many Triceratops and so few Ankylosauruses, I think it's an interesting observation, and I think it's a step too far to say, oh, they were rare in the ecosystem, but it's not a step too far to say they were rare in the TAFO system, if you will, which is to say they were an uncommon part of these areas that are getting fossilized.
Interesting.
And I don't think that's an unreasonable claim to make.
Right. Because where the fossils are forming is a very particular kind of area, right? Fossils are mostly either being buried in the river itself or immediately adjacent on the floodplain when there's when there's a massive flooding event and a lot of silt or mud is delivered. That's really local. We're not talking in the same area, are you in the same state? We're talking about are they common next to the water? Mm-hmm. Could be. And I mean, it's possible maybe Triceratops was just maybe it did, kind of acted like a hippo. I'm not hypothesizing this, to be clear to our viewers. And I'm certainly not stating it as fact.
New hypothesis, aquatic Triceratops. Forget Spinosaurus.
Right.
We're now proposing aquatic foraging Triceratops.
Obviously, it's a wading predator. It has
obviously.
short legs
The nostrils aren't at the tip of the snout.
Yeah.
So
we have to get off this before I lose my mind.
We're saving Spinosaurus discourse for the Spinosaurus video. Stop. Anyway, I just, it is possible that Triceratops really, really like these kinds of lowland, swampy, marshy areas, and that's just why it's so abnormally common. And then if you looked at the ecosystem more broadly, it wasn't actually that abundant.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe...
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Maybe, when Triceratops got sick or were dying, the plants there were easier to eat, and they went there, and then they just happened to preferentially die in that environment.
Right. I mean, think about it this way. Where I grew up on Long Island, white-tailed deer are everywhere. They are, incredibly abundant. I counted at least 23 different individuals within a mile of the house where my parents' house when I was last visiting. So, there's a mile, 1 mile radius. We've got 23 individuals and multiple herds and everything. White-tailed deer don't tend to, live at the shoreline. And so if we had fossils of this area in the future that are kind of very coastal deposition beach type environments, you might not really know they were abundant, or you might not know they were present. You probably wouldn't know they're abundant, right? Just because it's that granular, right? Of what's living exactly where the rock is being deposited and what's more likely to get captured there.
Right.
Phylogeny time?
Yeah, sure. I'll do a quick phylogeny. It's an ankylosaur. Golly. Thariophoryn. Right. For real. So this is an ornithischian dinosaur, a bird-hipped dinosaur, but, not with birds, etc. And amongst our 3 big radiations of ornithischians, this is a Thariophoryn. They share big, wide hips and lots of armor and scoots. This is an ankylosaur versus stegosaur, and then within ankylosaurs there are several groups of possible realness. There are the possibly monophyletic or possibly paraphyletic nodosaurs, as well as polacanthines, and then there are the ankylosaurs, which appear to be monophyletic. And these ankylosaurs, one of the features that unifies, I think, the group is the big tail club, which is a fusion of osteoderms and their distalmost caudal vertebra. And Ankylosaurus is one of 2, possibly 3. I think Crichtonsaurus is reconstructed as. I actually don't know where that goes, or where it's thought the thing that it's based on is supposed to go. But this is Ankylosaurus, which is an ankylosaurid, and I think it is even an Ankylosaurein in there. I think there's a subfamily to which this, and also I think Euoplocephalus is in that zone as well. So
Yeah.
armor everywhere except on the sides, but heavily armored heads. I don't think it's Ankylosaurus, but some members of the group have armored eyelids. They have a lot of really interesting features. Some of these animals have these really weird palate scrolls, where the vomer, the anterior bones of their palate form a scroll on the bottom of the roof of their mouth, which is bizarro.
I hate that
Not
a lot.
I'll find a picture.
I don't like that at all, that it's the vomer doing it. It would be okay if they were using... It's normally septomaxilla, right? Like in mammals?
Ooh, yeah, but then not in dinosaurs.
Well,
No,
in
yeah.
mammals, it's also not septomaxilla. They're
What is it in-
nasal. So septomaxilla is combined into the premax of mammals. They're just nasal turbinate bones. They're neomorphic ossifications.
So they come down from the nasals?
I don't know if they're developmentally part of the nasals. They ossify
What are?
from the
The turbinates.
turbinate bones.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
What are they? Are they their own
I think they're
thing?
their own thing.
Yeah. To
I
my
think they're
understanding.
forming from like the what's the midline, often non-osseous, like
Oh, are we talking about part of the ethmoid? But
possibly they're related to the olfactory conchi. This is also not what I'm talking about in ankylosaurs. Ankylosaurs do have complex internal nares that are like zoopy and twisty and foldy, and it's been proposed that they have a complex sense of smell. What I'm referring to, which is what I'm sharing in the group chat right now, is they literally just have a scrolled bone on the bottom of the roof of their mouth.
I don't want to look at it.
Oh, it's not as
Look
bad
at
as I
it.
thought. I thought it was going to be wretched, but it's not that wretched.
It's a tube.
It's a tube.
They got an extra tube.
Oh, I see.
Oh, no. Ew.
It's kind of yonic a little bit.
It's weird that they do
It
that.
is. It's
No.
bizarre. I have no idea why. I've been talking to a graduate student who's doing ankylosaur stuff, and someone told them that I'm doing palate stuff. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so glad to talk to you because you're doing palate stuff. Do you know why they're doing this? I said, no. I segmented it, and then I stopped thinking about it or looking at it because it was confusing.
Is it a dead end anteriorly?
No, it's open anteriorly. That's just
Okay.
matrix.
Okay.
Huh.
But it's not connected to the airways. Like the choana, you can see where the choanae are.
You know how Jedi had they carried their
No.
their food in those little tubes on their belt? This is
Yes.
it would pack up leaves into this tube on the roof of its mouth and just hold them there for emergencies. It's like I have to get into my emergency rations, and it would just.
No! It's like... No. It's like the videos of, pieces of macaroni in straws.
So I insist we don't talk about that. I have not been able to find a concrete answer on where the nasal conchi of mammals arise from developmentally. The cartilaginous bit that we were talking about before is the cartilaginous portion of the nasal septum, which is also contributed to by 3 bones: the vomer, the ethmoid, and the maxilla.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I know
anyway,
the ethmoid is the ethmoid is involved in some way.
yeah. So I have just one cool observation to make. Based on Raven et al.'s phylogenetic analyses of Ankylosaurids, which is, I think, the most recent published study, it looks like Ankylosaurus itself is at the base of a clade of otherwise mostly Asian Ankylosaurs. Anodontosaurus is also on that branch.
Oh, really?
And then it's let me pull it up again because I have decided to look at something else. So they are at the base of a clade. So it's the order of divergence is Ankylosaurus, then Anodontosaurus, and then Tarchia, Cychania, Minotaurosaurus, and another species of Tarchia or Tarchia.
Cool.
Which is the reason we've decided that maybe they're all just Tarchia, but they are these Asian Ankylosaurs. So it could be another example of another radiation of these animals making it into Asia around the beginning of the Maastrichtian, which is something we talked about in the Sinoceratops video.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
You know what I think we could do if everybody's
Rank this, please.
Let's rank it.
Let's rank it.
Because I have seen at least 2 separate tweets that I need to tell you about.
All right. Our thing.
I don't want to. It's just such... It's objectively, like, not the worst. Like, I don't think it's anywhere near, I don't know, Deinonychus levels of ugly. But it is such a horrible interpretation of a group of animals that is objectively very cool. And not hard to mess up, because there are many of them that are complete, and even have skin, and all of that other stuff. And, like, it's... And if what's-his-face, if this is actually his favorite dinosaur, like, I don't believe him. Because at the very least he could have like made it the retro style, like the weird pine cone or walking with like design, because I think that's what Zoo Tycoon did too, at least the original one. And like I don't mind that. It's not right, but it doesn't look this bad. Like I can't get over the shell. I don't like the legs, they look too long. It's not wide enough. The club I didn't even know was messed up, and now I hate it more. And the face is wrong, the whole head's wrong. This is an F. I don't like it. It's offensive. It's rude.
Wow.
I don't want to look at it.
Jeez.
I don't like this design. I don't hate it enough to put it in the same rank that I've put Deinonychus in.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to give this an F. But I think that these design choices are bad. I think that it looking like it was built in Spore and then imported into this game is probably not a good sign. Again, I don't fault any of the game character designers for this. They were stuck with what Frontier was stuck with what Universal did, and I don't think Universal should have done this. I'm giving it a D for don't.
Yes. Well,
design a dinosaur like that.
Scott has sent in his ranking, and he concurs with you, James. He says, Anky is a D for me. One of the worst designs in the game, legs too long, and it's got a carapace like a millipede. Like a half-remembered description of what an ankylosaur kind of looks like.
That's beautiful. He's a poet, and he doesn't even know it. Except he does. Is he done?
Yeah, that's it.
May I speak?
You may.
Or will the man continue to keep me
I
down?
decree that you may speak.
Thank you, sir. I think that this is a D for dinosaur. It's barely the animal. I like that there's a big ankylosaur, but if they were going to do a version where they like just a pack where they're like, hey, we've remade 4 dinosaurs to look just a little less dumb and bad. This would get in there with Dilophosaurus and Deinonychus, but it is less offensive to me, and I do like the Jurassic Park 3 model enough to keep it out of a worse spot.
Yeah. This doesn't...
The legs, sorry. It looks like it's like 2 guys in a suit.
For whatever reason, I find that like I don't blame Frontier for the design of this at all. And I wonder, like, I feel like them having to work with the Universal design on their like ankylosaur skeleton has given this even more problems. Like, the skin stretches bizarrely, and if you'll watch the plates when they move, like, they're kind of interconnected and wiggle, even though they look like they should be solid bone. Like right here, watch it like stretch. It doesn't offend me, which
Ow!
I reserve F tier for things that like offend me. This is into like
Respect
when I
that.
think about like kind of like why, like if it's Colin Trevorrow's favorite dinosaur and this is the design they cooked up, like at the end of the day, if you showed this to someone on the street and said, "What is this?" they'd be like, if they had a passing interest in dinosaurs, like, "Oh, that's that Ankylosaurus thing." It gets the job done, but like barely. I don't like pretty much anything about it, and most of the color schemes don't do it any favors. This one, at least, like the red on the face is nice. Although I find the red on the face is better with the very starkly black body that it has in Jurassic Park 3, which isn't replicated here. But it's D for me. D for don't.
Okay, well then, fulfilling Scott's role, 4 Ds and an F, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well, I think that makes it a D. Anyway, now with that being ranked as a D, I believe it's time to spin the wheel. Right. It's that time again, everybody.
to
Spin.
Spin
That
that
wheel.
Whale.
Let's go.
Round and round and round
What
she
do we get?
goes.
What do we
Where
get?
will it end?
What'll we get?
I hope it doesn't suck.
Oh,
Oh,
little guy.
another
Little guy.
ankylosaur.
Another
A
ankylosaur.
cutie pie.
All right.
All right, everybody. Well, it sounds like next week we are going to have to get ready to talk about a much smaller ankylosaur. And the one that used to have the record for the shortest name of any dinosaur. But before we go, a couple of things. You've made it to the end of the video now. If you've already subscribed to us, thank you. If you haven't yet and you enjoyed a long video of us talking, that probably means you'd like to be subbed to us. So just, take this as an indication that you should maybe do that. We also, so we have a Patreon. We appreciate the support we get there tremendously because it really helps us justify taking the time that we do to make these videos and make them good. And if you decide you want to support us on Patreon, A, we really, really appreciate your generosity. And B, you're entitled to a bunch of patron perks, right? You get access to the Skeleton Crew Discord server, which is fantastic and is now active enough that I can't keep up with what's happening in it, which is surely not a recipe for disaster with moderation in the making. It is, so that's great. You get access to a couple of special patron-only merch items. And perhaps most importantly, you get your name listed in the credits of all of our videos. And so we're going to have all of our patrons' names in the credits starting right now. But I want to take this opportunity to specifically highlight our most generous patrons who support us at Gorgosaurus tier or higher. That's $25 a month or more. At the time of recording, this distinguished group of people includes Benjamin Seepser, Nickname, Philip Fico, AK92, Christopher Bellis Jones, Adam Olos, Dan O'Kyrus, Isu152, King Zashu, Max Ironpaw, Original Username, Pythonic, Swamp Ape Science, Wanderer, and Wheat. Yeah, Wheat, please, nobody come in lower on the alphabet than Wheat, because otherwise we wouldn't say and Wheat at the end of all of our videos, and we'd be very upset. So thank you, of course, to these couple of patrons, but thank you again to all of our patrons and all of our supporters. We would not be able to continue doing this stuff without you, and we appreciate the time you spend watching, all the comments you leave, the likes you leave, the subscriptions you subscribe to, and generally everything you do to support the channel. Means a lot to us, so thank you all very much. And I think with that, we will see you next time when we talk about Min-Mai?
It's Min-Me for me. It always will be.
Min-Me. Well, it's
Min-Me for me.
It's probably, what is it, Conbarosaurus?
Is it the same animal?
No, I think a lot of the material that was originally used in the description of me is now Conbarosaurus or something like that.
I see. Well,
and what's actually me is pretty scrappy.
We'll talk about that next week. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.
Bye bye.